And here we are.
Hey guys.
Howdy.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Paul.
You always announce it like that.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
And I am the Paul.
Yes, you're the Paul.
The Paul.
So we are with the Go Box Art Crate and Vingo Artist Bar and Studio, streaming from Sherwood, Oregon today.
Our new home.
Our new home, Sherwood, Oregon. Yeah, we're moving our studio from Southeast Portland over to here. Mm-hmm. We've been in Southeast Portland for 10 years, so it's kind of a big deal. A nice short commute for us.
Yeah.
So I just inhaled a little something.
Amateur.
So tonight is kind of a surprise live stream. We didn't really announce it or market it in any way. We like to be sneaky that way. This is our Rustic Mountain moon board. I love these. I discovered them through a guy who has a wood shop out of state, and I just think they're so cool.
Where's he, in Texas?
He's in Texas.
Oh, cool.
So let's go ahead and zoom in on our project.
Wow, we're not wasting any time today.
Okay, so this is a combination of new wood with the old rustic. That's what I love about the way this comes together. Painting on the smooth wood is way easier than painting on this. But Paul tonight, let's have a look at yours.
Go for it.
He's going to be painting on a full rustic one. I ordered a couple samples to see which ones I thought would be easier for you guys. And so we had a couple of these left. So he's going to do his painting on that. We'll see how it turns out. I thought for you guys this would be a little easier.
Sure.
Painting-wise. 3-color painting. Very easy. We do mix just a couple different colors. But yeah, we have 3. We have phthalo blue, phthalo red, and white. You'll want to have a little handful of brushes of varying sizes. I do like having a nice big flat wash brush. This is about a 3/4 inch, but I often will use a 1-inch brush. Doesn't matter either way, they're so close. A little cup of water to wash your brushes in, and we are actually going to water down some paint to get this nice watercolor sky.
Sounds good.
And then you'll want a paper towel to dry your brushes on. And some kind of beverage. Let's do a toast.
Let's toast it.
Let's toast to rustic wood boards. Cheers.
Well, let's toast to reclaiming materials that would, in most cases, be going into a landfill somewhere.
Yeah, I love that. We're big on the reclaiming thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Paul does a lot of woodwork, and he's done a lot of our little wood boards that we've painted on over the years. He just doesn't have time between his 3 jobs.
No.
And so with your kit, you get this coaster. This is a great tool to use to trace the moon. If you want a smaller moon, you can trace like a mug. That's what I did for this. But I think I'm gonna do the coaster this time and put a larger moon on there. The other thing I toyed around with was balancing the moon right in the center, so it would be coming up right over the peak of the mountain. Either way is good as long as the moon and the snow are not the exact same shade. So this one has a lot of purple in it, and this is pretty much pure white. So having them slightly different will be much better. Otherwise, it's going to be confusing to look at.
And if you stumble across during the live...
Yeah, if you stumble across during the live stream...
Feel free to say hi. Feel free to ask a question. Make sure you like it, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. You guys know what it is. Basically,
we sell art kits with all the supplies, and then you do the tutorial video like tonight. And then we have a subscription box if you want to get it on a monthly basis. Different projects every month.
Yep.
And then we have a studio where we'll be doing live classes once we get that all set up.
Yep. Link to the website is in our description, so...
Yep. And throughout this process, don't worry. If you accidentally paint something in the background you don't like, you can usually catch it right away if you use your paper towel. Just dip a corner of the paper towel in water, scrub it off. Or use a clean damp brush, and scrub it off, and then dry it off with the towel. If that doesn't work, you could resort to using a little sandpaper after it dries. I think that would work pretty good.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to move this out of the way, and let's get going here. I love this board. I saw these on a wholesale site that I recently joined, and I had to contact the guy because I thought they were really unique and cool. So did we toast already?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, let's take your biggest brush, dip it in the water, wake up that brush, just brush it back and forth across the bottom of the cup. I like to loosen up the bristles. We are going to start off with a watered down color. So I'm going to plop some water right next to my phthalo red there.
Ooh, next to the phthalo red.
And just use the corner of your brush to pick up a tiny amount of the phthalo red. And I just keep mixing until I get a color I like. If you want a lighter pink, you could also water's kind of working as our lightener right here, but you could also mix a little white in there.
That's what I'm going to do.
But yeah, we don't have to do a... Yeah, you should do a lighter. I think with that, it'll look kind of cool, kind of whitewashed.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll want a decent amount of this watercolory mix, because it does... The board really absorbs it, and you run out pretty quick.
You also have to be careful not to use too much water, because we found in the past that it can oversaturate the wood a little bit. And
I don't think it'll be a problem with this one, though.
Okay.
So the reason we're doing this such a watery mix, and you can see when I brush across this how it kind of beads up and separates and comes back together. That's how watered down you want it. The reason we're doing it this way is because, real quick before this dries, I'll show you. That's how I get this cool wood grain to pop out. So we treat it a lot like a wood stain, and this looks cool because it can sort of mimic clouds. Okay, so we're gonna bring this from right here up to just below this line. So go ahead and dip your brush in, start way down here. Don't worry if you overlap into this, it gets painted white over the top, so it's honestly not
Which line were you talking about?
We're going to go just like maybe half an inch below
this
line. You could even bring it right up to the line. I just tried to keep it so it wasn't perfectly in line. And have a look at this. If you feel like you want it more pink, put a little more paint in your watery mix, which I just did, so you can kind of see what that would look like.
Mine looks a little bit like Pepto-Bismol.
It totally does. So what'll happen a lot of times, you'll get a little buildup on the edge or here and there. It's not a big deal. If you don't like it, you can dry your brush off and use it like a little sponge and just soak that right up. So I'm just going to do one side. I don't want to end this with a flat line. I actually sort of did this and dabbed my brush across here to create a more textured line so that when I blend it into the next color, it'll be a little more loose and free. Let's do this side. Now I chose these colors just because it's what came in my head when I designed the painting. It took me a little bit to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew I loved the boards and I had confidence that we could come up with some kind of painting for them. But it took me a little bit to figure out what I wanted to envision here. And you might wanted something that looked very, kind of went with like a northwest mountainous feel. It could go with like Colorado or any state with mountains and pine trees. Or country, I guess Canada would fall in there, right? Absolutely. Canadians, come on in and
we got a few Canadian subscribers.
Get some of these wood boards. So you can go over this as many times as you like until you get the color level you want. You can even go back to it later. And again, don't worry about overlapping into the area that becomes snow later. So you should be able to see the wood grain through it if you're wanting to make it look like the original. I'm going to tilt this a little bit, got a little glare going on there. And I just use pretty horizontal brush strokes up until I get up in here, and then I kind of raggedy edge this. And while that's still wet, it'll take a little bit to dry. I'm going to grab a little white with the corner of my brush and mix it on in there because we are transitioning to a different color, and I always like to get a little white in there. I didn't do quite enough at the transition because we're going from a pretty light color to a fairly dark color. And I'm just going to dab that on in this style, going up above here. And then I'll pull some of that lighter color down into this stain so that it doesn't look like I'm suddenly stopping with this harsh line. It looks a little better blended. How's it painting on the more rugged wood?
Well, I don't have anything to reference it against.
You know what it feels like to paint on pine or birch?
Yeah, but I'm more used to painting on the rustic wood.
Wash the brush, guys. Yeah.
And so it's a different process. the thin wash, like what you're talking about, doesn't quite work as well when it's going on
it up a bit.
Rustic Wood, so it tends to disappear and just absorb in and not show. So I'm using a little bit more pigment, but also I'm not working as hard to scrub it into the grain.
Okay.
So I'm letting it kind of float on top a little bit.
Okay. More. So I'm adding a bead of water next to my blue now, and I'm going to scrape a little blue into that. And we're going to create purple. And the way we do that is we mix blue and red. So we have phthalo blue and phthalo red. Phthalo red is a very interesting color, and we use it a lot. And it's kind of like a lot of people might call it hot pink or magenta. So make a purple you like. You might like a purple that's more on the pink or red side, or you might like a blue-based purple. For this original one, I did a blue-based purple. Basically the exact color I have here. That's what it looks like anyway. And for this transition, we've got a lot of paint on our brush right now, which we don't want. We want less paint. Let's wash the brush and dry it off. Just kind of real quick dry it off. It doesn't have to be completely dry. And I'm going to pull a little white because we're going to lighten a portion of this to be sort of lavender. Maybe add a drop of water. So there, you should have a lighter lavender shade and then your final dark shade. So this light lavender, I'm going to overlap into that lighter pink I just did. You can brush over the top, down into here just a bit.
Remember Over the Top, that movie with Sylvester Stallone?
I totally remember that movie.
And then Manchester Orchestra did a spoof of the movie.
They did. I thought that was so cool because that movie, like, I don't remember it being hugely popular when I was young. Like, a lot of people didn't know
it was a movie
it.
about arm wrestling.
Yeah, or truckers arm wrestling.
Yeah. Well, no, he was a trucker trying to make it on the arm wrestling
circuit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember it had a Kenny Loggins song that was like the theme song.
Meet me halfway.
Yes, I thought that was such a good song.
Across the sky.
I still think that's a good song.
Yeah.
But yeah, Manchester Orchestra did a music video, the I've Got Friends song.
No, Shake It Out.
Oh, that's right, it was Shake It Out. And it was definitely inspired by that movie. Not a lot of people would know that, and not a lot of people maybe know who Manchester Orchestra is.
Little shout out.
But you should. They're awesome.
Little shout out to Andy Hull and
we love
Manchester Orchestra. We love you guys.
We love Andy Hull. Okay, so I'm going to take with this, dip my brush right in the dark purple now. And we're going to go back to that sort of back and forth stain wash like we did down here. But you don't want it to be a line at the where the two colors blend. So do sort of just use your brush and just lightly flick your brush around. Maybe wash it if needed, if you need less paint on. That's always something that new painters, you'll learn the more you paint. It took me a while to figure out, am I using too much paint or what's the deal here? But you do figure it out, and it only comes from painting more. You will get there. It feels like you won't, but you will. You will. It's all about building up that confidence. So you should see some wood grain through there, unless you don't want to. You can do an opaque background. I just chose to do it this way because that's what popped into my head. But if you want to do it a different way, with art, I mean, it's subjective. It's whatever you like. I need to make more color. Not going to add white into this one, just the purple. And I got a little splatter there. That's okay. No reason to panic yet.
Never any reason to panic.
I don't even worry if I don't get the exact same shade of color. I just try to get close. It's a sky. It's going to fade in different levels of color. But one thing I do is I don't want to start with a ton of paint on my brush. I just wash it off and then continue on my path towards the top here. I get to teach this class at a local winery that we love, that we're members of. It's a couple that own it, and they're just super great. They contacted us a couple summers ago about doing classes, and we quickly joined their wine club, and just love going up there. It's about 10 minutes from here. It's called Potter's Vineyard. But yeah, I put this painting on to do a class the first Friday in June, and it's sold out within 8 hours. So they asked me to do a class the following Friday as well, and I put that on, and it sold out. Everything sold out within 24 hours. So we're pretty happy to see that people are excited about doing this painting. Probably excited about just getting out of the house.
If you guys are in other parts of the country, Oregon's been a little slower than a lot of other states in terms of letting people get out.
Let's just say Oregon was strict. They were very strict on the guidelines, and part of the reason we moved out of our Portland studio so early, we broke our lease a little bit early, just because we kept having to shut down, and we're like, and we're supposed to pay rent on no income? How does that work? But yeah, we got out early, and it's going to be great. It's going to work out totally fine. We're super happy for our local people who have us in to teach some classes while we're not having a location set up quite yet. We still got some work to do in here, some wall painting and that kind of thing.
Ceiling,
yeah. Okay, so if you want, you could add another layer of the purple starting from the top, working your way down. If you wanted it to really fade from light to very dark, that would be fine. On this original, I just had it like pretty much how we did it now. It looks like my new one's a little bit bluer, but that might have come from when it dries and absorbs into the wood, because I don't remember making such a light purple.
You know, and wood, 2 pieces of wood are always going to absorb the pigment differently too. So you're going to get different colors, even though it might be the same in theory.
So this is really pretty on its own. If you don't want to do white snow and you didn't overlap as much as I did, you could leave these just the plain wood, which I love that look. I think it's really cool. But I'm going to do this painting like what you guys were looking at on the original. So let's wash the brush. This time we're not going to make a wash. This last wash was the last wash we do for this entire painting. We want to be careful here because when you overlap white into here, unless you use sandpaper, it's going to be really hard to get off. So you might use a combination of brush sizes in order to get into some of these little nooks and crannies. And I did overlap. You can see it on here. You probably didn't notice it earlier, but you can see, if you were to look close, there's places where I overlapped. Just trying to feel this board out. And let's just take the white paint. I'm going to use this chisel edge to your advantage and go right along here. Fresh paint, if you accidentally make a boo-boo, it can be wiped off right away. But if it dries, then you're kind of a little bit stuck with it. You got to go with the sandpaper route if you're painting on wood. But yeah, feel free to just paint right over the seams. Fill those nail holes with paint.
I actually like, well, these are the manufacturing nail holes, but old nail holes, I like to come back and
make them stand out more. Yeah. When I first did this painting, I did the snow lavender because I thought, let's see what it looks to do something other than white. And I like when a night scene of a mountain with like a twilight sky like this, the mountain's never going to be pure white. It's always going to be either the pink shade or the blue or a combination of the two. Just whatever colors are in the sky are going to reflect off the snow. But it didn't look good on this. I felt like this is a very graphical design with the style it's put together, and it needed pure white.
So you say.
Oh, you're doing a different color. Had you started that before I said that?
Well,
Paul's doing his lavender. I didn't even notice. That's funny.
I thought you were.
Well, you're not going to like it.
I thought you were just tossing me under the bus.
No, I totally didn't even notice. I was trying not to paint over my background. I did not go in and paint the sides of these because there's a little bit, like it raises up a little bit. I thought, no, my eyesight is not good enough anymore for doing that. So I left him just the wood color, which again, it just adds a nice little extra texture and color in there. No harm doing that.
No harm, no foul.
No harm, no foul. This does need a couple coats of paint in order to get it truly opaque. It's pretty white right now, and I could leave it like that. Obviously, I've got a little glare there I can see, but if I bring it up in my special zoom in, fancy high-tech zoom in, you can see through it a little bit. So it's up to you whether you do a second coat. If you want it truly opaque, definitely. If you like to see a little bit of the wood through it, little wood grain, then leave it with this first initial coat. We're trying to think of other designs for this. I'd really like to do something, like I can see orange and Bahama blue on this.
Oh, I think we should totally
like total 1970s.
Yeah, that. You know, it's funny. I almost wore my 1970s Hood River hat tonight. I had it on my head.
Okay.
But you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Which one? It's that.
I think it would look so cool. I think I'm gonna have to do one. Who knows? So Bahama blue is a turquoise color that we love. A lot of people call it teal, but it's very like a pale turquoise. Pale but rich and vivid. And then our orange is this awesome bright orange. It's like pumpkin orange. And those two together, I don't know why I love them together. Maybe it is like the 1970s vibe. I probably had a t-shirt in that color. One day, years ago. One funny thing about our space in Portland that we're moving out of, when I was a kid in the 80s, my aunt had a business in that same exact space. And it was the coolest place. Like, if you're a fan of Stranger Things, it was a video arcade, very much like the ones they're in that show. And on top of doing the video arcade, she would do those iron-on transfer t-shirts. So you'd pick your t-shirt off the wall, and you'd pick your iron-on transfer, and there were always, like, tons of glitter on them. And she would make it while you play your video game. And I thought, that is the coolest business. I think it would be so cool if someone brought that back. So if you're out there, you can credit me with that idea. Well, I'll credit my aunt with that idea. There you go. There's your next business adventure. Video arcade / iron-on transfer t-shirt shop.
It might actually work.
It was called Top Scene. That
is so 80s.
I loved that place. Like, whenever my parents said we were going in there, I was like, yes! It was so cool. And then my uncle owned the movie theater next door, which has been there since 1925, but he bought it in 75. And I saw all my first movies there, like E.T., Return of the Jedi, Annie, Short Circuit, even Nightmare Before Christmas. I worked at the theater during that time. So yeah, little nostalgic history over there. Feel a little sad moving out, but happy to save on the rent payments. Very happy in that regard.
Also happy not to have a 45-minute drive to work.
That's very true. At rush hour. We love this Sherwood space and are super excited for it. It's got history too. It was built, well, it's 111 years old now.
Something like that. I don't know that we know the exact year it was built.
No. Former ballroom, slightly haunted.
Maybe.
No, I've never had, I am here alone a lot. I never have had any ghostly weirdness feeling or anything. But our friend leased the space before us, and she says it's haunted.
Yeah, I think it is.
With a friendly old ballroom dancer. All right, just washing my brush, drying it off. And next we are going to, there's a couple different things we could do. My immediate reaction is to go right for putting the moon on, but I think because this is still wet, you could have some dragging issues that might cause an issue back there. So let's do stars next. Just keep in mind, let's have a look at these stars. They're small, and I have a lot of them because in a mountainous climate, you usually don't have city pollution too much. Around the moon area, keep that area pretty blank because you can add stars later. So let's just kind of mentally box off this area and plan on adding stars later. Most of the stars are going to be up here in the darker area. Do a few down in here so it's not like suddenly you've got this panel has stars but this one doesn't. You want to kind of have them dissipate down here. The best and easiest way to do stars is to take your tiny brush. Don't use the brush end. Actually use the handle end if you have if you've got a little pointed handle, which most of these do. So you'll stamp it in the white paint. And before I touch it to the board, you've got a pretty good sized blob of paint on here. I like to dab it off a couple times on my palette so that when I stamp that first star on here, it's not humongous. You can kind of measure it off. And now I know it's going to be pretty small, so I can go right for the board without having to stop.
You know, that's something that's different between the canvas and the board is the canvas tends to flex a little bit, which would make a bigger dot, whereas the board doesn't.
The board is nice and rigid. I think I'm going to teach this class on June 23rd out in Hillsboro, too, at a Loft Hotel. We'll either do this one or one of our Oregon boards. That's a new venue to us. They contacted us and we went and checked it out and thought, oh, this is real hip. Little hip little space. Very nice general manager and event manager. And one thing I loved that they did, we just taught there, was that last week? Yes, it was last week. So we just taught there, and one of the things I loved that they did is they themed their drinks and menu after the class. So she made, instead of sangria, it was Vangria, like Van Gogh. She did her charcuterie plates had Van Gogh names like Starry Night. That is so cool. Just go the extra mile there.
It's good to have a new business partner like that who's excited and inspired to do different things.
Yeah, the class sold out pretty quick, so I imagine it will again. You know, I'll get that uploaded onto our vingo.com website if you're local.
And if you're not local, you probably won't be looking for it.
If you're not local, buy the kit and you can paint along with me here.
But if you wanted to come and join us, make it a road trip, it is at a hotel. So
it is at a hotel, that's right. And I found out this hotel company, they actually have hotels in like Dubai, and when am I going to teach there?
Hook us up.
Hook us up. I've got a couple little knot holes in here. There's one there, like a half one, and then one there. They're always kind of fun to play around with. A lot of times, that's where I would put the moon, because it's like, oh, it's a natural spot. But in this case, it can be a black hole, or a galaxy or something, or just a special little hole in the sky. So I'm kind of keeping this area free somewhat for the moon. If you want to do a comet, I can show you that, but I will warn you.
I couldn't do it on mine.
You wouldn't be able to do it with that Rustic Wood. Over the years of teaching comets in class, I would say 50% of people love it and do a great job, and 50% of people end up painting it out and complaining to themselves that they shouldn't have done it. So keep that in mind. But I will show it because I do like to. Some of you guys like to just experiment along. So what I would do is wipe the brush off. You want to use the brush part if you're going to do a comet. Don't use the handle or that will mess things up. And I just dip the very tip of the bristles in the white. Just pick up a little bit. I know I have way too much paint on here. I'm not going to use all that. And then I pick which one is going to become the comet. I probably won't put it on the moon side just because I don't want it to get too crowded over there.
Get too busy.
So we'll pick a star over here, a little lone star, and set the brush down the middle of the star, and then just do a quick drag back. And I didn't even do it right. But you just, if you can, release the pressure as you get to the end, so that'll give you a pointed tail.
That was a good way of encouraging people not to do it.
What?
Because you're like, I didn't even do it right.
Well, I was able to go over it.
Yeah, you can always fix those things.
Yeah, you can always go over it again. Here I am. Going over it again. Okay, washing the brush. I smeared a star there. All right. It is noontime. This is dry now. It's a tiny bit wet, but not enough that it would even transfer. Now remember, you can size the moon how you like. A cup or a mug is a good size. That's what I used here. I said that in the beginning. If you want to go big or go home, let's use the Go Box Art Crate coaster, which comes in your kit that you order. And it's a nice circle to trace. You can see this one has paint on it. So we trace them in a lot of projects. And you can use a pencil. I recommend using a pencil. I don't have one handy, so I'm going to use my paintbrush. And position it where you want it. Do you want it right centered? Do you want it over here? Do you want it over here? It's up to you. You can change up the painting. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. And as I'm moving this around, I'm smearing stars, so I need to stop that. And I'm gonna go with it right here. Nice big old moon there. Put a little white paint on the tip of your little brush and really hold this down while you carefully, if you're doing this with paint. The best way to do it is with a pencil. I'm probably gonna have some little edges to touch up. And it doesn't have to be a perfect opaque outline, just enough that you can see it so that you know where to fill in and you know where your edges are. So carefully lift that off. And yeah, I can see here where I need to go. There's a very, very thin line. Lots of little smeared stars. So I'm gonna wash the brush now, switch over to probably the biggest brush for mine. And I want to, how do I want to do this? Thinking here.
Think.
What I usually do when I paint a moon over a dark background is I tend to leave thin spots where you see the background color through. I know on this one I did that a little bit, but I also came back with some very pale lavender. So we're going to start with white. Biggest brush, just pick up a tiny bit. Little tiny roll of paint there. Start with small amount. You can always add more. And as I fill this in, I'm filling it in, sort of dabbing my brush around because that's going to give you some texture. The board is really going to suck that paint right up. And then here where it's dark, I'll just leave some thin spots where my brush is just sort of running out of paint. Kind of like up in there. And I just kind of randomly leave those thin spots. You can leave thin spots in pink too. Really use the chisel edge of your flat brush to get around these lines. And you can see throughout this, I turn my board a lot. Just use that to my advantage. I didn't paint this one on an easel. We usually don't for the videos because we have this zoom in camera that works nicely and it would be a little more difficult on an easel. But especially with this painting that's got the watered down background, what happens if you have your painting surface vertically and you do a watery background, you're going to get drips that go down and probably not going to like that too much. So a flat surface like this is perfect. When I was first learning painting, I didn't have any easels or anything and didn't have a ton of money for art supplies, so I always painted on a flat surface, just on my little vanity desk in my bedroom. If you want to use a smaller brush to get around the edges, definitely do that. And you can see the thin spots I'm talking about. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. We're going to add some color back, some shading back on the moon. So if you're in a situation where it didn't work out, there's still hope for you. Still hope. It turns kind of peachy over this. But so the combination of the very yellow wood with the pink, watered down pink, it turns such a pretty peachy color. I love it. That was a happy little accident too.
I'm not getting that same effect because my wood is all the rustic wood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I gave you the challenging one today, just so everyone knows. Actually, so the reason the reason Paul is painting on that one is partly we have two of them and we haven't done anything with them, and kind of wanted to see what paintings would look like on the one that's full on reclaimed wood. But also, if he takes one of these out of my inventory to paint on, we're gonna run out of stock for these classes I have coming up. So, so that's why. All right, I switched down to a littler brush just to kind of clean up some of these edges.
So essentially what you were saying back there is I'm taking one for the team.
You're taking one for the team, totally.
Actually, I like painting on the rustic wood.
I figured you did.
Kind of more the way I paint anyway.
I've got some spots where I can see stars through where I inadvertently put stars in my moon area. I'm not going to worry about that too much. I've seen a lot of paintings of the moon where people actually dab little dots on it. Probably like they're supposed to be small, well, smaller craters than the, what's that big crater?
Sea of Tranquility.
The Sea of Tranquility. It's such a cool name. I just think that is so cool. I love that. Okay, so the moon is pretty opaque white, very matchy to the snow, and I'm going to change that up a bit. You can see a little bit of the purpley background in there. Let me try to tilt this so you can see it. It's funny, it doesn't look like a perfect circle to me.
Even though you know it is.
Even though I know it is. I traced the coaster. It's just kind of weird. It's weird. Okay, wash that brush. Let's mix up a pale lavender. Or you can make a pale pink, but I think the lavender is going to work better for what we do here. So medium-sized brush. And we make our purple first. I usually use a little bit more blue to red. I think I overdid it. You want it to look purple and not just like a different shade of blue. So it should look purple to your eyes. And then I will add a little white in there. Let's start really pale. And we'll see if we need to darken it up. So I usually will just mix white in a small portion of it. It almost looks like a dove gray on the camera, but it's a very, very pale lavender. I have the feeling it's too light, that I'll need to mix a little of the darker back in. So what we want to do here is wipe the paint off our brush or wash and dry it. Wiping it off is super easy. And I'll re-dip the tip of the bristles to pick up a smaller amount of paint. And then I'm just going to dab this on. Actually, I think this is the right color. Might even be too dark. So I'm dabbing it on in a little splotchy blob. And I'll do some down in here too. So think of these like the canyons and things that are on the moon. That's what creates those dark spots. And then what I'll do, because this is dark and not very blended, it probably would look okay. I like to transform it a little more. I'll dip my brush, even though you just dip it right in the white. You don't even have to wash it. And then I'll blend the white over the top of that. So it's a tiny hazy layer of white paint.
That looks good.
Very, very small amount. And I don't go over every single spot. I'll leave some that are just this lavender color plain without painting white over it. The white will kind of act like a glaze and smooth everything out. I don't want every single spot smoothed out though, because if you look at the moon, there's definite, it's obviously like gray and white, but there's different levels of gray. There's darker spots of gray, and there's lighter spots of gray, and then there's white. So that's what we're doing here. And you can bring some pure white back in anywhere where maybe you feel like it got too dark. Like I could break this up with, bring some opaque white in there. And what I'll do is keep dabbing it out, maybe wipe off the brush and just sort of blend out the edges. And the way I'm just sort of quick dabbing my brush like this, that'll give you a little bit of a textured look. So I'm liking that. It's not like, if I really wanted to exactly replicate the way the moon looks from Earth, I would look at a photo. I'm never too worried about that, though. None of my paintings are ever going to be like exact replications or even super realistic. It's just honestly, not the way I paint.
Honestly, nobody's going to look at it and go, I'm not sure what that is.
What is that?
Can you explain this to me?
Is it an egg?
Is the mountain wearing a skateboarding helmet?
Yes, I'll never unsee it. You just broke rule number 545.
It's 327.
Oh, sorry. You can keep doing this, repeating this process over and over until the cows come home. If you felt like it just isn't right, start over. Add more purple to it. Glaze some white over it. Just keep going and going until you have it the way you want. You can keep working this a lot. And it's not going to hurt anything. Except for you might go a little bit crazy if you don't get it right. Come back to it the next day. I've done that so many times.
But you can paint at your own pace, so
absolutely,
whatever feels good to you, and what level of detail you want.
Teaching on camera is always a little bit, it's quite a bit different than teaching in the studio. In the studio, this would go a lot slower because I'm usually pacing myself with the students, and because I can't see your guys' progress.
There's no pause button in real life.
You can pause this video anytime, though. I'm liking this. Looks like two eyes, so the man on the moon. If you're really in a Halloween mood, you can turn this into Jack Skellington. How fun would that be? That would be fun, and then paint his like silhouette up here. Maybe we should do a Halloween version.
That would be fun.
It doesn't really go with the Tim Burton style. There's nothing swirly and curvy. But for the die-hard fan, you can do that for sure. And looking at my moon, I have this definite desire to just keep texturizing it and working at it, but I won't put you through too much of my OCD here. Just a little. You guys get a little sample of it. Okay. Now, if you want to paint a second coat on the snow, now is a great time to do it. Just be careful of your freshly painted moon. You don't have to give it a second coat. I technically could get away without. But because I mentioned it earlier, I'm going to do it. This is a pretty quick painting because there's not a ton of elements in it. And really we're only painting half of the surface. And like Paul said, it's one of those cool things where when you get the board and it's set up at your painting station, it's already pretty.
Yeah. We're just enhancing it.
We're enhancing it, yeah. I always like those projects that start out pretty, and this one doesn't go through a wacko ugly phase like the Ewok did. I think the Ewok painting we did on May the 4th was probably the the ugliest at some point of any painting that I've done, maybe, because it's like you know what it's supposed to be, but it looks really weird the way that the Ewok is drawn on there. And I saw so many people during the live video pop in and like immediately pop out I was like, no, trust the process. I find your faith disturbing.
At least
throw
nobody,
my Darth Vader quote in there.
At least nobody like bombed us with a negative comment on it.
Not yet. You just invited them to.
Yeah. I doubt that'll happen.
No, they turned out really good. The Ewok paintings, Paul's especially. We have it hanging up behind us because I loved it so much.
Well, thank you.
True Wicket. Okay.
That was my jam. That particular movie.
Yeah. So you wouldn't be as happy painting Jar Jar Binks? Is that what you're saying?
I'm gonna pretend you didn't say that.
Misa want to paint a Paul. All right. We're going to paint our fir trees on, and then we will be done. Signing this painting at the end is not particularly doable. So I recommend you sign the back, which is nice and flat. The back of these is your flat plywood with the hanger. Plenty of room to sign. You might even just use a Sharpie. And write the year. 2021. Or whatever year you do this.
Yeah, it might be 2017.
2031. Okay. Let's have a look at this OG one here. I have 4 trees on one side and 4 trees on the other side. That is so not like me. How funny. I usually do odd numbers, so...
You know, in China...
I must have been having a very even day.
In China, they don't even have 8th floors and skyscrapers because it's unlucky.
Oh,
so.
no. Well, I better touch this one up.
Yeah.
We'll just say there's other trees. You just can't see them. They're behind us.
You just gotta paint one more. That's all you gotta do.
Size-wise, they are... I did a couple small ones that are maybe about 1 inch in height. And then I purposely will cluster a couple together here and there. Because if you space them all equally, it's going to look too patterned out. I'm not setting this on here because I don't want to set it on the wet paint. These taller ones are more like 1.5 inches. So there's not a huge size difference. You can make them taller, you can make them shorter. I highly recommend you practice a few trees. If you haven't painted fir trees, you practice a few trees first before you go right for the board. I'm going to show you all the things about fir trees. I'm going to set this aside. Be gone with you. That moon is huge. And it's a lot more blue than the original. Funny how that happens. And the sky is more blue. It's weird. We always talk about that. How same painter, same designer, same painting. But teaching it ends up slightly different. Color-wise, like someone upped the contrast or something. All right, we're gonna take the smallest brush, dip it in the water, dry it off. I like to start with those bristles being pretty awake and flexible. And we're going to mix, you can use a bigger brush to mix the colors. I should have done that. I usually try to do that because mixing colors with your small brush can, well, the less you can keep those bristles from getting flared out and damaged, the better. So I'm just continuing to mix with my small brush. But let me show you how I paint fir trees. Every artist does it different. Every artist will find some way that works for them. Paul teaches is very different than me. I like to anchor it to something. It's probably maybe just the more type A-ish kind of person I am. And so I like to draw the tree trunk first. I'll make it a little bigger for viewing. And let's think about fir trees. If you've ever gotten a Christmas tree at home, you know there's that one spiky branch at the top. I'll do a blown up version. It would look like this. Usually not straight, even if the tree's been groomed. But that's the one you stick the Christmas star on. And then there's usually a couple out here like that. Usually like a triple thing. And then the rest of the tree goes down here. So this is a blown up version of the very tippy top of this tree, which we're not even really going to see. What I do though is I do a few dots. It's like a tiny version of that, just a few dots. And then I give this a tiny little mustache just by I'm dabbing my brush up and down like this. This is blown up version. Not really touching the surface very much, just a quick little dab. Then I'll do another. And then another. Everybody's trees look different. Mine look completely different than Paul's. They look completely different from a lot of our other artists in the studio. We all have to replicate each other's for teaching, but all of us do them slightly different. So I work my way down. As I'm doing this, I'm covering up most of the tree trunk. You don't need to see it. It's going to be covered with foliage if this tree is healthy and not burnt. We have a few, just a few burnt ones in the gorge now here in the Northwest.
It's true.
But what I do is I have it go behind the mountain. So I'm not going to put any foliage over the top of that snow because of the graphic style it is. I don't think it would look right. So yes, you end your tree behind the mountain. So I'll do another one. I highly recommend you find a piece of paper or something that you can pop out a couple trees on. Maybe pull up a Bob Ross video. Watch him, how he does his. I think he paints the tree trunk first.
Sometimes. Depends on the tree.
But Paul, here's how Paul does it. He starts at the top and he just goes without the trunk. And you can try that. See which style you like better. And now, before I actually go on the board, I'm going to show you a couple things to avoid with painting fir trees. I'm running out of room here, so I'll do them up here. So the most common thing I see with people who haven't painted a lot of fir trees, which, let's face it, if you're a beginning painter, you probably haven't painted a ton of fir trees. So practice makes perfect.
And if you live in Florida.
If you live in Florida, you're painting palm trees. Put them on the mountain. Okay, so what I see a lot of times is we just call this the fishbone tree because it ends up resembling a fishbone because all of these tree boughs are too spaced apart. So it kind of has that burned tree look. Easy to fix. I will have painters do these in class and they're panicking because they look weird and they just ruin their whole painting, and I will come up and I'll actually ask them if I can take their brush to show them how to fix one, and then they can proceed to fix the rest. What I do is I just come through and make the top a little pointier if needed, and then I dab on over the top of these fish bones and in between, so I'm adding more rugged foliage. Then I'll show you one other super common thing, and then I'll get started. All this stuff is good information to know. The other thing I've seen a lot is a tree that gets too wide too soon. So you'd want, like if you were to draw a shape around this tree, you want a tall, skinny cone.
5 to 7.
Tall, skinny, inverted cone. So yeah, Paul calls it the 5 to 7. So he thinks of it like 5 to 7 trees. He thinks of it like a clock face. Here's 12, here's 5, here's 7. So it's just a tall, skinny cone. And sometimes people will start a tree and have it get too wide right away. So instead of doing that tiny little mustache, they've done a giant Luigi and Mario mustache at the top. And so then you're committed. You're committed to making this gigantic tree, which in some paintings would work. Definitely. Some paintings you want that. For this particular one, all of these follow the 5 to 7 rule. So they're tall and skinny. Maybe even, it's maybe
5:30 to 6:30.
Yes.
That works too.
So I think I've shown you all the things that tend to happen. Practice away. Maybe practice and paint your trees the next day if you want. One thing that helps with using this little brush, I need to mix up some fresh paint. The little brush doesn't hold a ton of moisture if you have one as small as mine. And so I do tend to mix a couple drops of water in the paint. It'll extend the life of your paint a little bit and also make it a little more fluid. So you don't run out of paint so fast with this little brush. But when you mix paint, you end up with a giant glob. The best thing I find to do is just pull and twist your brush. And then you've got most of it knocked off. You can re-dip the tip of the bristles. And let's just go for it. Let's do one on the side because it's kind of out of the way. Let's pick a side. I'll do one here. Parallel the sides of your board. It's very easy to randomly make really leaning trees because you're focusing on something different. If you need to use a ruler, you can, although it's not really necessary. Just kind of parallel. They can lean a tiny bit. Just parallel the side of the board. You can go from the mountain up or from the sky down, whatever you're comfortable with. You can go through and paint all the tree trunks first, but I found that if you hate painting trees after you do your first one, you're not going to want to load this up with like 15 different tree trunks and then be committed to painting all those trees. So I do them one at a time. A few little dabby doos at the top, little mustache. Lift and tap your brush very lightly. There's no need to press down any harder than the lightest little tap. Tickle the board with your brush. And while you're at it, tickle the like button on that on this video.
I had to do the tickle me Elmo.
Oh yeah, tickle me. Oh gosh. I've seen some YouTube videos of people like trying to destroy Tickle Me Elmo, like burning it, and it's like still laughing and it's burning. And it's the
as soon
weirdest.
as you said the tickle, I was like, I gotta go there.
It's so creepy when you see the burning videos because you just see like the white plastic frame kicking its legs.
Still laughing.
It's like, oh my gosh, it's a horror movie. It's Chucky.
At least we never bought our kids one of those. That was before their time.
Hayden inherited a couple Sesame Street. They were Bert and Ernie.
I feel great.
Yes. So Bert and Ernie, they're probably along the same time that Tickle Me Elmo came out because our son's 20 now, and they were hand-me-down toys from a cousin. And this one for years and years after, I swear the battery must be dead. We'd hear it from his closet going, "I feel great." Just randomly.
I feel great.
I feel great. Well, good to know. Good to know, ghost demon of Ernie. Now leave this place. Okay, so I do like on this one how I have two right next to each other. One's very tall and one is shorter. One's about half the height. So let's do that. Because I can get too patterny. I tend to do that. I do want to cross over the other board, so don't try to contain it into just this lower board here. Don't worry about going over your stars. You can add more back in if needed. Little dabby doos at the top. You can't hardly even see them.
Dabby dabby doo.
Dabby doo. Mustachios. No Mario Luigi. Save that for another painting.
I just stuck with 5 on my painting.
Oh, yeah. Yours are big and hazy.
Yeah.
Probably
well, you know, it's because I'm not on the smooth wood.
And you're not one who ever uses very much paint, I noticed. You're kind of... I've never seen any of your paintings where you've used a lot of paint with acrylic.
Okay, I was going to say, because I just carried up my old...
Oil paintings?
Yeah, up into the back room.
So this one might hurt your brain a little bit because they are going to overlap, but it looks more natural that way. So I'm going to make this one right close. Make sure you align it with the side of the board so that you can get it semi-straight. You can lean a little, that's okay. Dab at the top, little tiny mustache.
A little dibby dab.
Little dibby 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 dab. I always like the parts where you see a star just kind of like peeking in between the tree boughs. You can always go back and add some in there like that too. It's a cool look. So yeah, they're overlapping, they're intermingling, that's okay, they look good that way. It's a great way to fix a tree. If you have a tree that you feel is totally botched, beyond fixing, sometimes if you put another tree right next to it partially overlapping, it completely fixes it. I had to fix Andy Carson's from Good Day, Oregon.
Local weatherman.
I had to fix his tree on the Multnomah Falls painting we did live because he did some longer brush strokes that just didn't quite look right. So I'm like, here, let me show you. He just painted right on his canvas. Okay, I've got 4 there, and I could continue going up, or we can go down this side. So, you know, I'm going to actually start going down this side. If you want to start down here in the safe zone before you go over the moon, most of you guys will probably want to do that. If Teaching these live will be interesting because they're very small. And so everybody's going to need to like put on binoculars.
We should get some of the old like theater like brass ones with the little handle.
Gosh, that would be awesome if we could find some. Just stick them in the sanitizer bucket when you're done.
We'll start doing all of our painting classes with VR and just give everybody VR headsets.
Oh, speaking of which, I don't know if any of you guys watching this have the Oculus yet. You should get it. It's so neat. I love it. I got it because my nutritionist recommended it for working out because it's low impact and fun. And that's what you want your workouts to be, fun, because it's harder to stick with them if they're not. I know from a lot of experience of starting and stopping workout programs. How funny, I ended up inadvertently lining this right up with that, and I did that here too. What is wrong with me? Anyway, so the Oculus is a virtual reality system. I'm just giving them some free ad space right here.
Not a sponsor.
It's $299. Comes with a couple hand controller things. I'm sure they have a certain name. I don't know. It's brand new. I got it on Mother's Day. It was my Mother's Day present. And the workout workout programs are fun. The one that we love the best is called Supernatural, and you're using your handheld things and you're exploding these targets as they fly at you, and then a lot of times you have to squat into a triangular shape, and sometimes the triangular shape is like tilted, so you're having to do like a right squat, like a runner's squat. Runner's lunge.
Side lunge, yeah.
And it shockingly is a really good workout. And I've done some hard workouts in my life. I used to be an avid runner and...
Used to be an aerobics instructor.
I used to be an aerobics instructor in the 90s. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, you get pretty sweaty. And they play great music. But my point wasn't the workout program. My point was the Salvador Dali painting that you get to travel inside.
That's on YouTube VR.
So YouTube VR. You can add the YouTube app to this, and there's 360-degree movies. I'm gonna try and figure out how many trees I want to put. I think I'm gonna put two close together up here. Anyway, one of them is you go inside a Dali painting, and it plays this weird music with I assume it's Dali talking in the background. Very strange. It's like it's a trip, honestly. And it's called Dali Dreams. I think you can watch it on YouTube without the VR. Just look up Dali Dreams 360.
Yeah, a lot of those.
But when you're on the virtual reality, it's like you are floating inside
you are
this
immersed
painting. Every night I watch it until I'm gonna get sick of it because I just feel like this is so weird. I love it.
A lot of those you can watch on your phone and just like you can pan around with it. It's just not the same.
I don't even like in the past. I've never really like looked at Dali paintings and gone, oh, they're neat, but they're not really the style. I'm not a big surreal fan, I guess. I would not say I dislike his paintings. They're just not usually the ones I'd pick to be like, oh, I love that. But there's a couple of them that are really neat, like the tall elephants. And they're walking around in this VR video, and you can hear the clunk, clunk, clunk of their feet hitting the ground. And it inspired me to make this month's sticker for the Go Box.
Oh, cool.
Is a Dali sticker. So, there's my little plug for Oculus.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. There's a funny glare that it makes it look like it's lighter than it is. Actually, maybe it is lighter than it is. You can go back and touch up any of these trees, add darker bits of paint like I'm doing right now. If you have any weird holes that you need to fill in with more foliage, you can do that. Some of mine, like this one, almost looks like someone came through with clippers and shaved the edges like it's in an HOA. So I'm going to raggedize that, if that's a word. We'll make it a word. We're raggedizing. You always make up painting technique terms.
Yeah, I mean, there's no rule about...
And then I found out some of them were real, scrumbling.
Yeah.
But there's another one that you use, whisking. You say whisking, and I always think about cooking. We're just going to whisk this paint around here. All right. So touch up as much as you want. And how I see this side is real flat too. I might have to add a third tree in here because this looks really weird. Let me show you how to fix. So this one here is got kind of bushy on the bottom. And it's probably okay. It's just a nitpicky person like me, you'll notice. So I'm going to tuck in a little extra tree here and show you how I fix that. Because what it does is it gives me another chance to do a better edge along here. I'm just doing foliage on one side at the moment, and then I'll hit this other side.
You gonna break on through to the other side?
Break on through to the other side. There we go. I feel happy with this. I like the comet. I like the comet.
Oh, so happy.
And if you haven't done trees over your moon yet and you still want to go back and fix your moon, like I said, you can rework and rework and rework. If you have done trees over your moon and you want to go back and fix your moon, you can do it. Let them dry. You'll probably have to do 3 coats of white to get started with a nice opaque finish like that, and just start over with the moon. If you have any weird little spots, like I've got a blurry star here, I don't think a color wash will cover that. I could use a little bit of sandpaper, then put a little patch of color wash on, and then the star, but it's so small, I'm not even going to worry about it. It's not even really noticeable. So that is our Rustic Mountain Moon painting. You can sign the back, because like I said, there really isn't much space on here where I think it would take away from the painting. This is one of those where it would maybe take away from the painting a little bit to sign it. Let's see Paul's very rustic painting, because he had all reclaimed wood to paint on.
Now the reclaimed wood, like when you're trying to do the trees, the paint does blur out more.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, see, I like this softness. It was hard for me to tell looking over to the side, but now that I see it on camera and right in front,
you know,
I like it.
See, I put a little...
You have shadow, yeah.
A little bit of glaze on this side, just to darken this up so that this side is all lighter than this side.
We have one of these left, so if you do order a kit and you want this one that's got reclaimed throughout the whole thing, just send us a little message right after you place your order. Send us a little message on our website, gobox.com. And there's a chat feature. It's just Paul and I answering those. We don't have any employees left right now.
It's just us two.
And so send us a message on there and tell us you want one of the really rustic ones instead of the other, and we'll ship it to you.
So let me point out something real quick, and that is the difference between painting on the rustic wood versus the pine. Because the rustic wood, I'm assuming, is probably cedar. Anywhere in Oregon, it's all going to be reclaimed cedar fence boards typically, or pallet boards. But typically this is going to be cedar. But you'll notice the top of mine, which was just red and blue, no white at all, compared to yours, which was also just red and blue.
I put a little white through here.
Right, but I'm just talking about just the very top.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how much darker mine soaked in. Whereas,
and you have the cool old, those are screws, it looks like.
Yeah, screw holes.
Screws.
Yeah, there's a couple down here too.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's something that when you do paint on the rustic, you don't have that ability to do the detailed trees like you did. You can't really do it.
No, but your soft ones look really nice.
Yeah, it works. And for some reason, it's weird. It must be the camera is tweaking, because I'm looking at it in person and it doesn't look oval, but on the monitor it looks
the
oval.
moon? Yeah, you're right. That's what it is. It's this monitor we're looking at.
Oh, it could be the monitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I look on our YouTube,
the moon looks circular, but on our monitor, which is the big blown up view, they both look oval, like egg shaped.
Yeah, but then again, the paintings or the boards themselves look rectangular instead of square.
Yeah.
So.
All right, you can go back. Thank you guys for joining.
Thanks for hanging out with us again.
Painting along, hopefully, or just having fun watching. It's kind of fun. Like and subscribe to the video. That helps us a lot. It helps people find our channel, and especially just liking the video. It's great. So our next video will be probably our GoBox subscription, which will come before June 7th.
Yep.
So that'll be whatever that is. I think I know what I'm doing. I don't know if you probably don't know, because I haven't given you the colors I'm using yet.
Yeah, no, I haven't got the colors, but I'll figure something out.
So at any rate, hope you guys have a great night. If you have any questions about the product, send us a message on gobox.com. That's GOGH.
Or you can drop a comment.
Drop a comment on the video.
Yep.
and we'll get back to you. But enjoy your painting and watching and whining.
And good luck.
Good luck.
Bye, everybody.
By whining, I mean whining. Bye.
Bye.